Right now, you're probably worried about something. Not something happening to you at this moment, but something you're imagining might happen tomorrow, next week, or next year. You're anxious about a conversation you haven't had, a rejection you haven't received, or a failure that exists only in your mind. What if I told you that this mental habit is the real problem, not the future itself? Today, we're exploring an ancient Stoic solution to anxiety that most people completely misunderstand. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending your problems don't exist. Instead, the Stoics show us something far more powerful: the distinction between what's real and what's imagined. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your worry is harming you and exactly how to stop it. Let's begin with a question the Stoics would ask you. How much of your suffering is actually caused by real events? And how much is caused by your thoughts about hypothetical events? The answer might surprise you, and it will change how you approach your life from this moment forward. 2,000 years ago, in Rome, a man named Seneca wrote to his friend about anxiety. Seneca was not a starving philosopher. He was one of the richest men in the empire, an advisor to emperors. Yet he understood something crucial about the human condition that wealth could never solve. He wrote, "The mind that is anxious about future events is miserable." This wasn't poetry, it was observation. When Seneca said the anxious mind is miserable, he meant something precise. Your mind is trapped in a prison of its own making. Right now, while you sit in relative safety, your thoughts are constructing disasters that don't exist. You're not being attacked. You're not starving. Yet mentally, you suffer as though you were. Seneca saw this pattern everywhere in Roman society. People with everything to be grateful for, paralyzed by imagined catastrophes. Here's what makes this observation so powerful. Seneca is not saying you should never think about the future. He's not saying avoid planning or preparation. What he's saying is that the moment anxiety enters your mind, the moment you start suffering mentally about something that hasn't happened, you're no longer planning. You're suffering, and that suffering is happening now, in real time, whether the future event ever manifests or not. Seneca spent years studying this in himself and in others. He noticed that anxious people often experience tremendous physical strain. They sleep poorly, their stomachs are in knots, their minds race at night. The irony is devastating. They're destroying their present health to protect themselves from a future that may never arrive. The mind that is anxious about future events is miserable, not just mentally, but physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Another Stoic, Epictetus, who lived after Seneca, taught enslaved students in Rome. His life was literally dominated by external forces beyond his control, but his mind was free. He offered this observation: man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems. This statement is so important that it's worth reading twice. Let that sink in. You're not being harmed by reality. You're being harmed by your interpretation of reality. Let's make this concrete with a modern example. Imagine you send an email to your boss asking for a raise. The email is sent. It's done. Reality is simply waiting for her response. But your mind? Your mind immediately creates 1,000 scenarios. She's angry. She thinks you're ungrateful. You're going to be fired. They're going to demote you. None of these things have happened. No one has spoken to you. No decision has been made. Yet you suffer all day as though your catastrophic imagination is fact. Epictetus would say, the real problem is that you sent an email. That's a fact. But the imagined problem, all those scenarios your mind constructed, is what's actually destroying your peace. The email is harmless. Your thoughts about the email are the actual threat. This is the distinction that most anxious people never make. They believe they're suffering because of a real external problem, when actually they're suffering because of their internal interpretation. Here's what makes this understanding revolutionary. It means the problem isn't your boss, your job, your finances, or your future. The problem is how your mind is responding to these things. And if the problem is your mind, then the solution is within your power. You cannot always control external events, but you can learn to control how your mind interprets them. This is where true freedom begins. Not when circumstances are perfect, but when you stop being tyrannized by your own imagination. So we understand the problem. Now comes the practical solution. Seneca offers one more crucial insight. He suffers more than necessary. Who suffers before is necessary. Think about this. You're already suffering once when the problem actually arrives. Why would you suffer twice? Once in imagination and again in reality. Yet this is exactly what anxious people do. They rehearse their suffering endlessly before it ever comes to pass. Here's how to apply this starting today. When you notice anxiety arising, that pull toward imagining future disasters, pause. Ask yourself this one question. Is this happening right now? Not might it happen. Not could it possibly happen. But is it happening in this present moment? The answer is always no. Your boss hasn't fired you yet. Your relationship hasn't ended yet. You haven't failed yet. The present moment, examined honestly, is always acceptable. The Stoic practice is simple but requires discipline. When anxiety appears, write down exactly what you're afraid of. Not the vague feeling, the specific scenario. Then ask, what can I actually do about this right now, today? If the answer is nothing, then you're suffering unnecessarily. You're rehearsing for a play that may never be performed. If the answer is something, then stop worrying and start acting. Replace anxiety with action. This is the only rational response. For example, you're anxious about an upcoming job interview next month. The specific fear is that you'll forget what to say. Can you do something about this right now? Yes. You can prepare. You can practice. You can research the company. But notice, this is not anxiety. This is planning. Anxiety happens when you imagine yourself freezing up, failing, and never getting hired. And then you sit paralyzed, unable to act. Planning happens when you calmly prepare for possible outcomes. Here's the daily practice. Set aside 5 minutes each evening. List the 3 things you're most anxious about right now. For each one, write down, what specifically am I imagining? Is this happening right now? What can I actually do about it? Then tomorrow, do that one thing. Even a small action breaks the spell of anxiety. You move from being a victim of your imagination to being an agent in your own life. This is freedom. The Stoics understood something we've forgotten in our modern age of constant connectivity and catastrophic news cycles. Your mind is the only thing under your control. Your thoughts, your interpretations, your focus, these are your domain. Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius all taught this because they knew it from experience. They used this practice not to achieve wealth or power, but to achieve tranquility. And tranquility is worth more than anything. You now understand what the Stoics knew. Your anxiety about the future is not protecting you. It's not making you safer or more prepared. It's stealing your present moment, the only thing you actually possess. You have right now, not tomorrow, not next year, now. And in this moment, if you examine it honestly, you're almost always okay. Start with one day. Just one day where you refuse to suffer before it's necessary. Notice when anxiety arises. Ask yourself, is this real? Is this happening now? What can I actually do? Then choose to act instead of worry, or choose to accept instead of fear. You'll be amazed at the peace that's available to you when you stop torturing yourself with imaginary disasters. If this resonated with you, if you felt something shift in how you think about your worry, I ask you to subscribe for weekly Stoic wisdom. Each week, we'll explore another timeless principle that could transform how you live. These aren't abstract theories. They're practical tools forged by people who faced real struggles and overcame them. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.